Trouble at Boston College.
You had these wholesome kids, and you had the mob, you had payoffs. No wonder it became Goodfellas.
You guys are gonna fix these games or shave the points?
I'm not gonna do it. It's wrong.
It's hard to play basketball with a broken arm.
It all started in 1978 when Boston College was becoming a contender in the East under second-year coach Tom Davis. Nobody suspected anything about any of the players, and especially not Ernie Cobb, a team captain and top scorer. The other captain was junior, Mr. Goodboy Jim Sweeney. The third player involved was a failed minor league baseball player, Rick Kuhn. He was the 6'6", built like a football player, not so good boy. Opposites attract on this team as Rick Kuhn and Jim Sweeney built a strong friendship. At the same time, a few hundred miles from Boston, in Lewisburg Penitentiary, Henry Hill and Paul Mazie met each other to do some drug dealing when they got out of prison. Paul brought up the idea that there was a chance to make a lot of money regarding Boston College. The person who made the arrangements to fix games was Rick Kuhn. Mazie and Kuhn were connected by two guys in Pittsburgh, Rocco and Tony Perla. They thought they could make money based on the outcomes of college basketball games. This is how it worked. People don't bet on teams to win necessarily, but to how many points they win by. That is known as the spread. So the gamblers bet on the games when Boston College is favored, and bet on the opposing team, and would pay the Boston College players to keep the score under the spread. So BC didn't necessarily have to lose the game for the gamblers to walk away with a profit. This is called point shaving. But for this to work, they needed more than Kuhn involved to throw the games. Kuhn arranged for Tony Perla and Henry Hill to meet with Jim Sweeney. This is when Henry put the offer on the table to bet on basketball games, because nobody would suspect it was him, and it was a good chance to make money. The expected pay for each game was around $2,500. To make this work, Henry needed New York connections to bet. That would be Jimmy the Jet Burke. Henry Hill was kind of like Jimmy's student, teaching him the lessons of never rat on your friends and always keep your mouth shut. Jimmy was skeptical on the scandal and played the whole thing by ear. Hill assumes he is in and the scandal is underway. The first game they bet on was the BC Providence game, in which BC was favored by 5 points, so they bet on Providence to either lose by less than 5 or to win the game. That game, Jim Sweeney and Ernie Cobb, who was not in on anything yet, had great games and they blew them out. Everyone was furious with Kuhn and Sweeney, and they were afraid that they were going to get themselves killed. To make sure that didn't happen again, they needed to get Ernie Cobb in on the deal. Rocco Perla talked with Cobb, and there are different versions of the story of what happened. Sweeney never said a word to Cobb or any of the players about anything that was happening. The next game they bet was BC against Harvard, and the players kept it under the spread. Jim and Ernie both received $1,000, and Jim knew, even if he didn't want in on the scandal, that he was already too deep to back out now. The gamblers were threatening him in many ways, so he felt forced to carry on with the point shaving. The season in point shaving went on, with money earned against UCLA, Rhode Island, UConn, and Fordham, and the money kept rolling in. But the game against their big rival, Holy Cross, didn't go according to plan. Holy Cross was favored by 3 points, and the bettors placed their money on Holy Cross and told the players to just lose the game. For Sweeney and Kuhn, this was a lot more than they thought they were getting themselves into, as they were being threatened to lose the biggest game of the year in the middle of a great season. They were promised this was going to be the last game, and there was a lot of money riding on it. Sweeney was such an emotional wreck that he intentionally fouled himself out of the game, so he couldn't be blamed for anything that happened. The game went down to the wire, and Holy Cross won by 2. But they were favored by 3, so all of the money put on the game was lost, and Burke was furious. This was the end of the scam, and everyone moved on. Rick moved out of town, Ernie graduated, and Jim won a bunch of awards on and off the court. The friendship of Jim and Rick also moved on, as they stopped talking for good after that season. At the same time, Jimmy Burke was suspected for doing the Lufthansa heist, which is another story, and he started killing everyone who suspected him. He had associates all over the country, one being Henry Hill, which led to Henry's arrest. Hill was reluctant, but they offered him immunity if he fessed up, and he eventually started giving information. Hill mentioned the point of shaving and busted everyone involved. The trial went to federal court, and Paul Mazie, Tony Perla, and Rick Kuhn all got 10 years in prison. Rocco Perla got 4 years, and Jimmy Burke got 20. And the rat behind it all, Henry Hill, got no time. Jim Sweeney and Ernie Cobb were found not guilty, but the speculation costed them both a shot at the NBA. And this scandal will always be tied to Boston College.